There's a big, scary country above these three countries, known as Russia. It has long, dark, and painful history that I'm going to teach you. So probably ever since the 1500s, Russia has had horrible kings, also known as czars. Two of them are known as Ivan the Great and Ivan the Terrible. They're both equally bad, except Ivan the Terrible was like disgusting looking. Russia has been its big, scary, intimidating country that it's been for all its life, and they have had many wars with many countries. Hence, the Russo-Japanese War, when Japan said, hey, we're gonna start invading now. And Russia said, no, you can't do this. And then America comes in saying, no, you two stop fighting. And then came the Treaty of Portsmouth. Not Portsmouth, England. Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And then everything was peaceful. For now. Around 17-something, that Russian Empire fell, and then came a new Russian Empire. You're still able to be called a Tsar. Then came Tsar Nicholas, the last Tsar. Why was he the last Tsar? Well, something called the October Revolution happened, where a man named Vladimir Lenin decided to say, hey, I don't like this leader, so I'm going to order some men to kill him in higher standing. So one night these leaders break into the Tsar's house, kidnap him and his entire family, put them out in public, and shoot them in front of Vladimir Lenin. And then came the Soviet Union! But then in 1924, Vladimir Lenin died. He was pretty old when he took Russia in 1917. And then came this big, scary, ugly mustache man, Joseph Stalin. Which then he turned the Soviet Union into a communist socialist state. Communism is just a stricter version of socialism, which socialism basically says everyone is poor, everyone is equal, no one is richer than the other. And then Stalin decided to oppress his own people and kill his own people, putting them in constant poverty. And then came World War II. When the Nazis basically took over all of Europe, they tried invading East, and then Russia's big, flexy muscles scared them. So the Nazis said, we're going to be at peace with you for a little while. And then later on, they tried invading East, which, when Hitler was younger, he did study about Napoleon and how trying to travel in extremely snowy weather kills everyone. And that's basically what happened. Then came this big battle known as Stalingrad, which more Soviets died than Nazis, even though the Soviets won the battle. At the end of the war, the Allies won, even the Soviet Union. But then, a lot of men were dead, and I mean men, just men. Even Russian civilians were dead, but more Soviet soldiers. Let's say there was a shortage of men, and if a woman had a boy child or even have boy twins, she got like 15 medals of honor. That is how bad Russia was after the war. And then came the Cold War. But no one died between Russia and America. That's good. Oh yeah, Stalin is long gone from here. He died in 1953, but then came Khrushchev, which then he started the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because back when espionage was being performed by practically every country to ever exist, we saw that the Soviet Union gave Cuba missiles, tactical nuclear missiles that could reach DC, and then we said, oh, we are now scared. What are we going to do? We're going to send our navy there, and we're going to tell Russia, get out of here, you loser! It went successful, even though Khrushchev was a little mad. But Kennedy and Khrushchev said, we're not starting a nuclear war. We don't want people to die. Oh yeah, and did I mention that this war lasts for probably until 1991? But then in 1963, Kennedy was shot, dead. Which then came Lyndon B. Johnson. And then he stopped serving as president in 1969. So practically Vietnam War, Cold War, and Korean Wars happening all at the same time throughout the 70s. Why? Because we hate communists. So throughout this painful time, we're stressed, we're losing a war. Besides the Korean War, we finally got that done, the 38th parallel. Russia is just sitting back, relaxing, and all cool. Shooting some b-ball outside the school. Probably even chilling with China, because now China's communist, because they took over its entire country. Besides Taiwan, because Taiwan is the only non-communist part of China. And then, near the end of the war, we kind of just beg Russia to help us just a little bit, even though the US leaves the Vietnam War. Anyways, let's fly back to Russia. So after the war, Russia practically barely participated in the war. And then comes another Soviet leader, known as Gorbachev. We're skipping to probably mid-80s to early 90s now. He was the last Soviet leader, and one of the other progressive Soviet leaders. Which then Ronald Reagan said, hey, you know what we should do? We should take down that wall. And Gorbachev says, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Let's take down this wall. And then East Berlin is now back to its normal self, which is not communist. So is all of the other countries that the Soviet Union took throughout its time during the Gulag. And then in 1991, Gorbachev says, I'm stepping down as the Soviet leader, and so is the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is crippling down into nothing, and you know what we're gonna do? We are bringing back normal Russia, also known as the Russian Federation. So let's hop about 26 years later into 2017, and now Russia is back to having a leader living life like a czar, also known as Vladimir Putin, who is practically the most meme kind of leader I've ever seen. I cannot count how many memes there are about Putin.